Jeremy Corbyn has officially formed an independent alliance along with 4 other MPs. Jeremy Corbyn is among 5 independent MPs to have formed an independence alliance, a group opposing inequality and war. The former Labour leader joined 4 other independents elected in July, forming the group, which is the 5th biggest bloc in Parliament. The other members are Shocker Adam, who defeated Labour frontbencher Jonathan Ashworth in Leicester South, as well as Ayub Khan, Adnan Hussein, and Iqbal Mohammed, who also stood on pro-Gaza tickets. The group said its aim is to boost the opportunity for the independent MPs to ask questions and hold the government to account. In a joint statement, the MP said, "We were elected by our constituents to provide hope in a parliament of despair." Now, a while back, Jeremy Corbyn did signal an alliance with other independent MPs, but he also spoke about a possible alliance with the SNP. Now, obviously, they're not in this group, but that's understandable because being in a political party, it's sort of a group itself. Many MPs in political parties wouldn't have the autonomy to join an official group that's not affiliated with said party. Now, I'm sure there will be many media figures who will attack this. Anything involving Jeremy Corbyn or standing up for Palestinians will draw some interesting takes. And I've already found one. A tweet from a Lib Dem supporter said this: Jeremy Corbyn's new independent alliance joins Reform UK as the only parliamentary groupings to feature no women and be 100% male. This was frankly pathetic. It seems relevant to bring up this meme, though, where brown people are being bombed. Oh, at least it's been done by a woman. He forgets the fact they are not a political party and there are no women independent MPs. Plus, there's 5 of them. So what? It's just cringeworthy liberal identity politics. It means nothing. It's just pure virtue signaling. Now, the Independent Alliance is a bigger bloc than the Green Party, who have 4 MPs, and are on par with Reform, who have 5. Cog, do you think this is a significant development? I mean, could these 5 independents push the narrative? Could they work with other MPs and other parties on specific policies, or would they be about as effective as the Socialist Campaign Group?
Yeah, I mean, it depends how it's used. Like, pressure groups can be effective, but it's largely all about good comms. An advantage that they do have is that they have a sort of natural group leader in Jeremy Corbyn as the person who's kind of brought them together. You know, they don't all have to follow his direction, but one of the things that's lacking in a lot of the kind of informal socialist groups that exist in the UK and the US is a definite kind of hierarchy. Now, I've just spent several minutes going hierarchy is bad. Actually, in some cases, it can be good, but it depends how the hierarchy is formed, whether the hierarchy in itself is justified. I think in this case, we're talking, unlike in the case of landlords who don't do anything to like earn the money that they take, they just own stuff and they produce wealth by owning stuff. Jeremy Corbyn has proven himself as a politician and somebody who can, you know, he's not the best speaker, but he's a pretty good speaker. And he's also, you know, he's got the experience that this group could use and exploit. But if you're going to be a pressure group, you have to understand how to use soft power influence. You should always be talking to the other parties. You should always be seeking to influence, to make, you know, other connections where you can. It's knowing how to affect change like that. It's knowing how to use your soft power, which has made the European Research Group on the right and the sort of UKIP adjacent coalition so effective in pushing the political zeitgeist towards things like Brexit, towards, you know, pushing the Conservative Party towards Brexit. What I'm hoping is that the Independents and the Greens and all of these groups can eventually begin to move the Labour Party leftwards and counteract some of this push that we've had from the Conservatives rightward. But they are, I've got to be honest, it's not all on them because they are working against the grain of history. Typically, after a big financial crash like the 2008 financial crash and the COVID crisis, countries do swing rightwards. It's just a fact. For the next couple of decades, they will tend to swing to the right. But that's not to say it's hopeless. With groups like this and their soft power influence, there's a good chance that we could swing things to the left again.
Now, according to the BBC, the Independent Alliance spoke to the former 7 Labour MPs. I mean, they had the whip removed for voting against the 2-child benefit cap. But it seems none of those 7 are willing to join. They've not really said anything. I mean, what do you make of that? I mean, do you think they should, or is it a bad idea? Because that would mean they 100% wouldn't be allowed back into the party. Or do you think if those 7 MPs join this alliance, they would actually have more power than being inside the Labour Party?
I do think that they would have more power outside of the party than they would inside the party. However, I think if they wait and join when Labour's popularity inevitably drops even further than it currently is, it'll be much harder to dismiss them as like a few radicals who are angry at the fact that we deselected them. You know, it would be easy to dismiss them as kind of like, oh, just these triggered lefties. We don't have to worry about what they think. They're not anything we should worry about. We're serious grown-up politicians. But if you're in the
that framing triggers me when I hear people say grown-up politicians. It sends shockwaves in me. Sorry, I interrupted you. Carry on.
No, you're right though. It's extremely annoying language. It's a theme of this, like going back to the Macron story. It's the kind of the liberal centrist who just, they assume that because they are willing to adopt any position that comes from the right, that's the same thing as persuading people towards their political positions. And it's just not. They're just moving the country further and further right in whatever way it is. But when we're talking about this particular group inside the Labour Party at the moment, they probably have more power, not because they have power to influence the Labour Party, but because they can choose their moment for when they drop out of the Labour Party, for when they choose to rebel. It's their ability to rebel and rebel very publicly that gives them a lot of like soft power in this situation. I'm not, to be clear, because I know there's going to be people in the comments saying this, I am not saying that they would have power inside the Labour Party. In fact, I think that people inside the Labour Party right now are losing power as Keir Starmer begins to reform the leadership of the Labour Party to make it so that members can't vote for the leader. That's only going to end in disaster. It's only going to end in an increasingly authoritarian streak reaching its peak.
I definitely agree with you that I don't think it would be a good idea for any of those 7 to join now. Maybe bide your time and wait for Labour to be weakened, because in the eyes of the public, they are looking quite weak. The latest polling is actually abysmal. They're only 4 points ahead of the Conservatives. They're on 30%, the Tories on 26%. Really astonishing. But structurally, they still have a huge majority. They still have a lot of power. And I think it's probably wise to wait maybe a couple of years. But it's also, this is a starting point, right? There's only 5 independent MPs, but there could be a huge sort of groundswell of independent MPs getting elected. Most famously, or one of the famous ones, is Liam Mohammed coming within 500 votes of beating Wes Streeting. There's no reason why she couldn't win in the next election. I mean, given how unpopular the Labour Party are right now, unless they do some drastic changes, they're going to be very unpopular in the next election. I expect them to win, but maybe on a smaller majority. And in those instances where they get a smaller majority, they lose seats to someone like Liam Mohammed, and it adds more to this independent group. You know, it could be at the next election 10 independent MPs, and that could be a real force.
Patreon.com/turnleftmedia. Support independent media. Support social justice that's there on social media. Thank you. Turn Left.